Hi, my name is Rebecca Barron. I'm here to talk to you all about how to take care of this lovely plant. This right here is the Hoya Heuschkeliana Variegata. There are also several other varieties of Heuschkelianas, such as, the albo, which has the white on the edges, the pink. There's several other. They're all very similar care instructions. So I'm going to put this down and just kind of tell you about it. Although I might pick it up every once in a while. I'm going to step back here so you can see my whole body. Okay, so this Hoya is from the Philippines, and it's a semi-succulent. Hoyas can be very easy to grow because they are semi-succulent. They don't need to be watered constantly. They like to go, a while without water. So the leaves on it, you can kind of see, but they're quite small. You can see they're maybe about the size of my thumb-ish. See that? They come in a really nice, if you have them, good light levels I should say, they come in a nice, as deep as red or often pink, and then they'll fade back eventually to this color where it's the green on the outside and the kind of creamy color on the inside. They're so pretty, and they're pretty thick. Like some of them I can bend, some of them I can't. Like as they get more mature, they get thicker, and you can't bend them. I guess you could bend it, but you'd break it, so don't do that. The variegation on them is very stable. I've propagated probably 100 of these things, and I don't think I've had a single one revert on me. Some of the leaves have a lot more green, so the inner variegation is just not very big. Then usually that's like with the cutting or at the beginning of a cutting, but then once it gets going, it goes back to just the beautiful, almost all cream on the leaves. So they have pink flowers. I'll put a photo in here because I did get one to bloom. I don't get a lot of them to bloom because I cut mine so often. You can see the one I'm showing you today. I cut yesterday, but I did get one pink flower on it, and they're really pretty. And if you're not like me and don't cut yours, then you should get blooms when they're mature, like maybe 6 months to a year. A tip to get them to bloom more often is to put them in smaller pots. You should put them in smaller Hoyas in general in smaller pots, and generally when I propagate these, I just put them in little 2-inch pots, and then eventually they work their way up to a 3-inch pot. These are the one I'm showing you is my mother. I have several of them that are in this size pot. It took I don't know 6 months or a year to get to that size, so I just kind of slowly work my way up to the bigger pots. You don't want to start them out in the big pots right away, or else they just focus on growing roots and they don't grow very many leaves or flowers or anything else. So especially Hoya, they don't have big root system. The roots they have are very fine, so you don't need to pot them very often, which is kind of nice. Their growth rate, since they're a small leaf Hoya, they grow a lot faster than the larger leaf Hoyas. I could get a new set of leaves every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it depends. Once they get going, maybe the more mature ones will put out a new set of leaves every week. So as far as soil goes, I put everything in my aeroid soil mix. I can link to it below. Basically, if it doesn't grow in my soil mix, I don't grow it, which is very, very few things. And then as far as the watering goes, I water all mine in my self-watering system that I kind of sort of made up myself, that I have a video I can link to. And the Hoyas seem to really like that consistent, moist soil without being overly wet. But then I give it 2 days to dry in between, because they like to have about the top 2 inches of soil to dry it out in between. So that's the equivalent. Mostly I just pick at the pot, and if it's a lot lighter, then I know it is when it's wet, then I water them. And these are not too picky about getting overwatered or underwatered, but it's always ideal to water them ideally. I'd say I water mine it's hard to say, about every week or so, give or take a few days. It depends a lot on different things. But so as far as the amount of light goes, the standard thing is bright indirect light, which means nothing to me. So in my house, I don't really have any windows that I grow. I don't have any windows that I grow plants, and I grow them all under Barina T5s. I can link to that down below. And I put these about, oh, how far? So the mothers, I have to put them on a shelf that's farther apart because they're taller and they get closer. So probably about half the distance, so maybe 5 to 7 inches from the light. The ones that are closer to the inside of the shelves get more light, obviously, than the ones on the outside. So I have a light meter I can link to below. I've measured these Heuschkelianas, and they get about 400 foot candles. That seems to be a good amount of light to where they're growing, and they're getting a slight amount of sun stressing. But I found if they get too much sun stressing, they look really nice for a while, but it really slows down their growth, in my opinion. This whole video is my opinion. I should have said that at the beginning. You know, my conditions, my circumstances. I'm just telling you what is working for me. If I put them under more than 400 foot candles of light, then they start to, I guess I kind of already said that, slow down, and the leaves come in really red, and sometimes they get kind of like, once they turn to pink, they get kind of this, I don't know how to describe it. You can probably see it on this one. Yeah, you can see it's like kind of like spotty. Soil dropping. I don't know if that's going to show up on the camera, but the red gets kind of splotchy, and it takes a really long time to go away. I don't know, it's just, you can tell it's a little too stressed. So I grow all my plants under the same conditions. Once again, if it doesn't grow in my plant room, I eventually don't grow it. So it's about 60% in there constantly because I have a dehumidifier to keep the humidity down. And then the temperature is about 73-ish degrees. It may range between like 72 and 75 degrees. It depends on the time of year and all that. But I have a little space heater in there to help keep the temperature constant. They seem to really like that, and then they always think it's summer, and they're always just happy, and they flower a lot and grow a lot. Now, as far as fertilizer goes, at first I didn't fertilize my Hoyas. Some people say you don't need to fertilize them. You may not need to fertilize them, but they like to be fertilized, and they grow faster, and they're just happier, and they can put their energy into just growing and being happy instead of just trying to survive. Right now I'm alternating my fertilizer. I can once again put a link below between it's Dynagrow Foliage Pro and liquid dirt. I water with every watering. Every time I water, I have just a low strength amount of the fertilizer in, and I rotate every other week between the two fertilizers, so they're kind of hoping to get the best of both worlds that way, you know. Some plants might like some more than others and all that good things. Let's see, I already talked about that. I haven't had a big problem with pests on this plant. That doesn't mean you won't, and a lot of the reason I haven't had a problem is because I'm very good about doing routine maintenance on them, because like a year ago I had a big outbreak of pests, and so ever since then I do systemic and inside my trays and my self-watering trays all the time, so they're always getting some sort of pest prevention that way. But then I rotate between 3 different pest like sprays, insecticides, to try to hit up all the different kinds of bugs, and so they don't get used to one different kind. I try to do that it's probably about every 3 to 7 days. I'll be making a separate video on that eventually, and I'll link to that below. Another thing to know about Hoyas in general, not just these ones, is that they are non-toxic to pets. So that's another nice thing about them. Maybe just kind of an overall view on the Heuschkeliana is that they really are really easy to grow, and they're really pretty, and they're popular for a reason. You can grow them in front of a window, especially if you have a south-facing window, but they're going to need more light than a lot of your other plants like philodendrons and pothos and some of those. So keep that in mind, that you might want to get a grow light if you're trying to grow them, or at least put them in a south-facing window, and just kind of watch them. And you can kind of tell, which is kind of nice about the Hoyas, by how like variegated, and especially how pink the leaves are when they come in, that sort of thing. Like, it's pretty easy to tell if they're getting enough light or not too much light. If they start getting leggy and the growth is slow, then you would give them more light. And oh, I was going to talk about cuttings. I forgot all about that. So to cut them, how would I demonstrate that without being prepared? Well, so I don't have a great example because I just literally cut this yesterday. I cut off all the long ones on it. But so you cut it to, if you know what a node is, that's where leaves come out of, basically. And so what I do with this plant, at least, is I cut it to where, I mean, usually it's a longer one I'll cut off, and I'll cut it into a couple different pieces, and I'll, for each little 2-inch pot, I will do 2 nodes. So I'll cut off the leaves at the bottom node and put them in, and then there's just like 2 leaves sticking out. That's how I do it. With Hoyas in general, you're supposed to be able to just only have 1 node, and you keep it above the ground, and then roots will grow from the stem. I haven't done that with my Heuschkelianas because I don't notice a lot of extra roots growing on them and stuff, and I just want to be extra careful that it's going to be a successful propagation. So that's how I do that. And I just put them straight in soil. I don't bother with moss or water or anything. I've had really good luck with these rooting. Every once in a while I have like a batch that doesn't do so well, but I think a lot of times that was more at the beginning when I first got it, and those leaves are probably under a bit of like stress, even though I waited a few weeks after I got it. You know, it was just kind of random. But I've had really good luck with the propagations on them, and they're just fun to propagate, and they only take a few weeks to root and start putting out leaves. I think what I was going to say with that is make sure you keep them wet, like more wet, like don't let them dry out really at all when they're propagating, and they need lots of light. So like the 400-foot candles I found a good amount. It helps them get roots faster and put out leaves faster and all that, and not fail. They need lots of light to fail. Some people put their propagation bins in, those tubs with the moss and like almost no light, and I'm like, those are just gonna rot and grow really slow and have really small leaves. So that's just my opinion. I haven't done a ton of experiment with other kinds of propagating because I've been doing soil propagation for 30 years and it's worked for me, and I figure why change. And every once in a while, if one doesn't work in soil, I'm like, well, that's not a plant for me, and I let someone else have fun with it that knows how to propagate all those other fun ways and likes to do that sort of thing. So thanks for watching. I would love it if you could share it with other people, and I'd love it if you could come back, watch my next video, and comment and let me know if you like this Hoya, and if there's any recommendations you have for other people. If you think that my recommendations are off, or if you do something different, I'm totally open to that, because there are tons of different ways to grow plants, and I'm always trying to learn and grow and improve how I grow my plants. So thanks, bye.